2 years ago, a friend first told me about Wuthering Waves. It's an exciting new Genshin-like that was in development. I had heard nothing about it, so I humored him and gave the trailer a watch. And my immediate reaction was, wow, this looks terrible. The world looked like you put Genshin on a grey filter and took out all the whimsy from it. The character designs weren't even close to the levels of MiHoYo. The plot sounded boring and cliche, and the main selling point was apparently the combat having more depth to it, which is not something I care about myself. And the name Wuthering Waves? What the fuck is watering? That's the dumbest name that's the dumbest name for a game I've heard in my entire life. So I politely told my friend I wasn't interested, and that was that. 2 years will pass without me so little as hearing about the game again. I had got some small rumors about a game that had 80% of its plot reworked and all characters remade from the ground up or something like that, but I never knew what that was about, really. 48 hours prior to release, the pre-download for the game became available. My friends who were interested all started talking about the web event and what they got out of it. Most importantly, they had to choose what server to play. Everybody was ready to hop on an A, as we usually do since the circle is mostly an A. However, I noticed that this time we had more EU players interested in trying the game than usual. And at this point, I had watched no trailers, I had seen no gameplay in 2 years, I had barely heard a word about the game, and with just one look at the screenshots, I saw that the world was still grey and ugly. And the characters were still a massive step down from MiHoYo. Not to mention that it was finals week, so I really needed to focus. So I told them, confidently, to not worry about me and that they should go to EU this time. And so they did. And I went back to whatever I was doing at the time. Without a single worry in the world, because I knew I was confident that there was no world where I would 24 hours before launch. The unbelievable happens. I open up Twitter for my daily intake of memes and pornographic material, and then I see it. No way. It's impossible. This can't be happening. MiHoYo finally fitting the Resin System? Less than 24 hours before Wuthering Waves launches? I couldn't believe my eyes. MiHoYo, the titan of the industry, deemed WoWa enough of a threat to increase the resin cap by 40. Again, the same thing they did 4 years ago, trying to solve a famine by giving people bigger balls. I did not pass my finals. Hi, I'm Miredio, and this is the fourth time I get tricked into playing one of these games. I am a Genshin Hour 1 player, and I played the game for several hours straight every day for 2 years before I quit. I am also a Tower of Fantasy Day 1 player, and I probably spent around 1,000 hours playing that game before I quit. I also spent a good amount of time in Honkai Impact's open world game modes, though they're far too short for any of them to truly compare, time-wise. A lot of that time was spent playing together with friends, but most of it, by far, was me just exploring the world or just fucking around in it. And I do mean most of it. I explored 100% of Mondstadt, 87% of Liyue. I got tired of crawling up and down mountains, okay? And I finished 100% of Genshin's 2.0 update in just a week. The entire map, every quest, every puzzle, every chest, the entire fucking Sakura tree, and there's probably stuff I don't even remember at this point. All while I was out on vacation. Fun fact, normally when you arrive to Inazuma, you're forced to go through border patrol before you're allowed to leave the port. However, I knew doing that would put me into skipless dialogue and possibly lock me into a sequence, so I found out if I just jumped off the side of the port and swam around the event trigger, I could skip the whole thing and get to exploring right away. And so I explored all of Inazuma without permission, and only then came back to the main story. As for Tower of Fantasy, I completed the version 1.0 map. Then for version 2.0, I completed the whole map. then the green version of the map, then the dark version of the map, including the entire city. And then my friend's laptop stopped working properly, so I told them I'd take care of their account while they got a new one. So I got on their account and explored the entire thing all over again. Now, why am I telling you all of this? Well, it's very simple. I can't continue with the rest of this video without you understanding two simple facts. One, I played these types of games before, a lot, and two, I have a problem. Like, all jokes aside, there's definitely something wrong with me. My parents say I'm artistic, but I'm not sure what they mean by that. In any case, I tend to get addicted to this kind of game. Like, really addicted. As a result, I have a lot of experience with them and could tell you all about what made them so addictive in the first place. But I'm not very good at giving compliments, admittedly a flaw of mine. Instead, what I am very good at is complaining. Because when you're like me and get too hyper-fixated on a game for months, if not years at a time, playing it for several hours every day and longing to play it more every second you're apart from it, to the point that it consumes your mind, to the point of rendering you virtually fucking useless for anything else, when you are that invested into a game, you don't notice the flaws anymore. No, you feel the flaws. They claw at your skin and gnaw at the back of your mind. And you can and will try to ignore them. You'll tell yourself that the developers will fix it and that it's fine for now. You can bear with it. You can stand it. It's okay. It'll be fine. It will be fine. It is not fine. Every single time I play one of these games, the same story repeats itself. A launch full of issues, forgiven only because the game is fun, hoping the developers, as they seem to take action quickly at the start, content runs out, issues become more painfully apparent, fun starts to dwindle, issues become more painfully apparent. Developers only ever fix bugs and glitches, but not game systems. Issues become more painfully apparent. More issues are thrown into the midst. Developers do nothing about it. Issues become more painfully apparent. Community starts to rage at the developers for their apathy, and the developers do nothing. Issues become more painfully apparent. Hoping the developers starts to dwindle as more and more the criticism is drowned out with complacency by players that just don't care. Issues become more painfully apparent. Hope runs out. I lose the ability to even be mad at the game anymore and just turn apathetic towards it myself. I start playing the game out of habit and not out of my own desire to do so. Issues stop being painful because I don't care anymore. Eventually, something finally happens that makes me snap out of it and just uninstall the damn game. And just like that, a game that used to be all I could think about is now nothing but a bittersweet memory of a lot of wasted time in a game that was left to rot by developers that never cared in the first place. And my only regret is having trusted them to begin with. Because I always do. I'm always the one telling my friends that, hey, let's hope it gets fixed the next update. No? Well, maybe next time. And I end up making a fool out of myself when I eventually accept that they're just not going to do anything, except milk the game for all it is worth. Wuthering Waves currently is a very, very fun game, because it just came out. Having just about run out of content myself, it's easy to say it is and will be for at least one more update. But as somebody that's been here before, multiple times, I have tweaked the developers because I want to, not because I've really been given a reason to. Kuro Games put out a game that was guaranteed to succeed, so long as they didn't fuck it up. And they fucked it up. And the community sentiment got really negative, rightfully so. It was a very botched launch, but not everybody had to deal with the problems, at least. Then, in a panic, Kuro started handing out compensation after compensation. very generous ones at that, to regain the trust they had lost. And it worked. Player perception right now, overall, is divided in two camps. People that already hated the game before it released, and hope. A lot of hope for the game's future and a lot of faith in Kuro as a company. While I personally stand on the second camp, that hope does not come from a place of sense. It comes from a place of fear. Fear that I will once again obsess over a game that will only leave me hurt in the end. But why am I afraid? Kuro has shown hotfix after hotfix that they really wanted to make the game good and just messed up. We have reasons to believe in them, right? Well, do we really? As much as I'd love to praise them for their efforts through hotfixes, the matter of fact is that the game should not have released in such a bad state. And then making the game playable for some people is not something we really should praise them for. It's the bare minimum we should expect. As for the compensation, it is incredibly generous, that's for sure. But ultimately, it's just in-game stuff that costs them literally nothing to hand out. I don't think they deserve praise for being generous as much as other games deserve to be called out for being so fucking stingy that a permanent banner temple looks generous to us. Now, both the hotfixes and the compensation are great. I don't want to come off as ungrateful for them. But what I'm trying to say is that to me, they don't communicate the developer's intent to make a good game, as much as it does their need to fix a game they released incomplete and calm down a community that is sick and tired of developers mistreating them and taking them for granted. Now there is the blog post, that one massive wall of text describing their plans for the nearby future. That gave me hope, because at least they seem to care about the big strokes of the game's issues, which is great. And given the current state of the game, I would not really ask for more right away. But what happens later? What happens whenever we're done with the big stroke issues and are left to deal with the smaller details? Is there a minimum size for an issue to be addressed by Kuro? Will they be okay with something being passable, or will they actively pursue making the game as good as it can be? Will there be a point where neither Kuro, the community, or God forbid both become complacent with the state of the game and start trying to make it better because it's fine? And I know that sounds incredibly paranoid because, number one, I am, and number two, the main reason I'm worried about it is because it's a gacha game. And people already have this preconceived idea that there is a hard limit to how good a gacha game can be. You can fact check this yourself. That anytime there's a complaint about the state of the wayplate system, somebody will come out to defend it saying it's a gacha game. Gacha games always do this. It's standard practice. It's worse in other games. It's no use complaining. All of these comments that are complacent with something, not because there's a logical reason why it is the way it is, but because, well, they're used to it. The entire industry operates a certain way, so why should Kuro do anything different? And I agree. To a degree. Yes, it's a gacha game. It's obviously made to drain your wallet. And yes, Kuro is a publicly traded company, so they have to ensure they make good profits. But where I don't agree is in the idea that making money has to come at the cost of game quality. Mobile game companies adopted certain practices not because it brought the most money, but because it brought the most amount of money for the least amount of effort. Gacha games have always been cheap pieces of garbage games with systems built to manipulate you into spending money. And characters in these games are only made appealing as a means to get you invested so that you're discouraged from quitting and encouraged to spend more money. Gacha games have, for the longest time, been glorified porn galleries where the point is collecting the pretty PNGs, flexing them to your friends and draining your wallet while you do all of that. The gameplay never really mattered. I mean, look at Azure Lane. Not a single soul plays that game for the gameplay, and yet it's massively successful. Granted, that's because their PNGs are quite high quality to say the least. That's where the difference lies between a game like Genshin Impact or Wuthering Waves and your average gacha game. The gameplay does matter in these games, and people absolutely care about it. That's why Genshin Impact built up so much animosity from its player base. They made the first ever true gacha game and then proceeded to treat it like any other cheap gacha game, while also not committing to it enough to appeal to people that wanted a cheap gacha game. I mean, where's the skins, Hoyo? They put themselves in a limbo where nobody is truly happy, but they have enough people invested in the game to where it doesn't matter. They're not gonna quit, so they'll just keep spending. And there are valid reasons to like Genshin Impact, I'm just not gonna name them. Wuthering Waves has the opportunity to take all the potential Genshin had to be a game first and a gacha second. And if you're gonna try to tell me that they can't do that because they need to stay profitable, please just look at the revenue from Jinlin alone, not from any other part of the game. Just from people pulling for Jinlin, and tell me with a straight face that we need tacit fields to be 60 wayplates each or else sales would plummet. The matter of fact is that many of these standard practices in gacha games are standard practice not because they're good at boosting profits, but because they're good at maximizing how much a developer can milk you before you realize you're playing a shitty gacha game and quit. But Wuthering Waves is not a shitty gacha game. It has genuinely a lot of value as a standalone game, and it just happens to have gacha mechanics integrated into it, so they can pretty confidently stand behind their stellar gameplay without needing so many layers of anti-quitter protection, as other games do. And so long as the character design stays as good as it is, the money will keep coming in. At least that's my opinion. I guess I can't and shouldn't speak for everybody. But okay, I think I made my point that the game has the potential to be more of a game than a gacha while remaining well profitable. But what are the problems I keep speaking about? Well, I think it's easier to start by what I don't mean by it. The gacha system. In this game, it's perfectly fine. Yes, it would obviously be better for the player if every character was given for free and whatnot, but that's not. This is literally the source of profit for the game, and I'm more than perfectly fine with letting it be as it is. We can talk about the amount of pulls per update whenever we have a good measure on that. It's 1.0, we just don't know. My only concern with the system is that it could run into the same issue Genshin has right now, where limited characters stay limited forever, so the permanent banner is and will forever stay dogshit, and 4 years into the game's lifespan, there are characters that can go for a whole year without being attainable. That just fucking sucks. My proposed solution is to either adopt the Honkai Impact system, where Valkyries will all be put into the permanent banner a set amount of time after release, with random rate of banners for the not so old ones popping up every now and then. Or even better, adopt the Tower of Fantasy system where every character will eventually join the permanent banner, and there's themed rate of banners where you can choose to pull one of 3 S-rank characters that are not in the permanent pool yet. That way, very old characters are kept out of rotation, but permanently accessible if you get lucky. Not so old characters get to rerun faster, and newer characters aren't really affected in any way. The game already lets you buy copies of characters in the shop using currency. I'm not sure if it resets or if it's a hard limit of 2, but if it's a hard limit, I would absolutely remove the limit and make it refresh on a timer, since the currency required to buy those copies is acquired by pulling anyways, which encourages players to pull on banners that they otherwise would ignore to hard save for a rerun banner of their favorite character, since they can get copies by pulling on any banner instead. If you think the current price of copies is a little low for that, you can keep the 2 on the shop right now as a one-time that is cheaper, then add more on a higher price tag and put that on a refresh timer. Again, I'm fine with the pull system as is. But just because it's fine, it doesn't mean there's not room for improvement. Or that said improvement has to come at the cost of profits. Okay, now onto some of the things I believe should get improved as the game moves forward. I'm not saying it has to be soon or all at once, just in general. These are things I believe would lead to a better game if changed. Though for the sake of time, and because I'm getting a little lightheaded honestly, I'll give only a summary of my proposed solutions to each one. And after the 1.1 live stream shows us what the very near future has in store, I might make a more complete video about the ones that don't seem like they're getting addressed soon. Or that I don't think were addressed properly. The Wayplate system sucks. It's the same arbitrary stamina system every game has, so you can't ever do too much in a day because they don't want to let you reach the end of the game too fast. I consider it completely pointless because no matter how much they slow you down, you will reach the end of the game sooner or later. And when you do, the system stops serving a purpose other than annoy you. All the while you have to suffer through it, limiting you the entire way there. Am I saying to remove it entirely? No, not really. I think that's too drastic of a change and there's better ways to go about it. Reducing the cost of activities would mean players have more to do every day, and it would help the ongoing resource drought in a way that increases the amount of time a player spends playing the game, rather than decreasing it like double drop rate does. Additionally, and joined with the ecosystem, which I know is already getting addressed, lower wayplate costs means players get to do more tasted fields, which helps both with the resource drought of echoes and gives players more opportunities to gamble on echoes, which is a great way of getting them addicted to the game. Let's not kid ourselves and pretend getting a good 3 cost piece isn't exhilarating. On the topic of echoes, 100% 5-star drop rate is needed. That 20% 4-star drop rate is a massive kick in the dick because it means you now have a chance to get a useless echo rather than a chance to get a usable echo, which just feels like shit. Instead of just changing the current level 20 to be 100%, I would just add a level 21 and make it so the drop rate, once you reach it, is 100% for 5-star echoes. Additionally, I would add 5 daily drop rate increases for elite echoes. That way, 3 cost echoes are more reasonable to farm, without having to change the loot table on them. Which is another suggestion, but I wouldn't do both at once. This one worries me the most because I have a feeling the chances of it being changed are less than 0, but I really find Constellations for 4-star characters to be extremely underwhelming in this game. A large majority of them are just damage increases or just conditional stat raises, which is fine but not very exciting. In Genshin, 4-star characters are basically just incomplete 5-star characters, and whenever you master Constellations, they get the missing pieces they need to feel like 5 stars. They gain new properties to their abilities that change the way you play them and give you more options in how you use them. WoW's 4 stars have a little bit of that spread here and there, but at least to me the difference seems pretty significant. The best way I can put it is that a character like Noelle starts off as a healer and a shield bot, then becomes a raid boss with 100% ultimate uptime whenever you max out her constellations, allowing you to use her as a main DPS so long as you meet her energy generation demands. Taoshi, which is very often meant to be similar to her, starts as a quick swap burst damage dealer, and then at max constellations, she's basically the exact same, but just does more damage and provides more shields. The last one almost got it right, increasing the damage of her basic attack to make it less wasteful to keep her on the field, but it completely missed the mark on the fact that it's a flat 40% damage increase, which is big, but it can't make up for the fact that Taoshi is a character whose whole kit scales on defense, except for her basic attack. So even with the 40% increase, you're still scaling off of your weaker stat, which is forever going to hold you back. If the passive made it so her basic attack damage would scale off of defense instead, that would single-handedly make her able to be used as a main DPS reliably, without harming her quick swap or burst damage playstyle. It gives a character more options, and more importantly, it patches up her damage, which is currently pretty lacking, so it's not like she's at any risk of being game breaking with a single passive change. It might just be me, but the reason it worries me so much is because if that's how they're gonna handle 4 stars, it's just kinda boring, and I don't think it's something they can legally change, since obviously they're directly tied to the gacha system, meaning money is involved and they can't change a product they've already sold you, unless it's false advertising, which is why Taoshi's passive got bug fixed. Assuming they really can change it directly, I have 2 solutions. One, way later into the game's lifespan, I'm talking at earliest 2.0, you add 1 more row of talents to each character, and in that row you can have new passives that alter how a character plays or can play more significantly, which just sounds like a wonderful way to expand on gameplay in general. Or 2, you take the Honkai route and create weapons with passives that only work when they're used by specific characters. So the weapon itself is widely usable, but when used by their intended character, they get an extra passive that alters how they play. It's a bit scummy, since this would obviously be put behind the gacha system, but again, it is a gacha game, and I am willing to make compromises if they lead to an overall better game. And you also have to pull for Constellations anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. The limited 5-star characters basically work like that already. And on the topic of Constellations, and why I've been calling them that, can we please get a toggle to simplify the game's language? As much as I appreciate creativity, this game makes it really hard to remember what everything is. Like, just bear with me for a moment. When you pull, you get a character. When you pull that character again, you get a copy. You can use that copy to ascend your character and unlock a new passive. With this game's lingo, that sentence goes, when you combine, you get a resonator. When you combine that resonator again, you get a waveband. You can use that waveband to unlock a sequence in your resonance chain. Resonance skill, resonance liberation. Why not use skill and liberation? Forte, talent. Forte circuit, unique talent. I know they're trying to be immersive and I respect it, but I would like a toggle for simplified language, because I'm gonna be honest, nobody calls any of these things by their name, and that's not a coincidence, they just don't roll off the tongue. The Abyss in this game sucks ass, because it is modeled after Genshin's, and that's the worst Abyss out of them all. It's really hard for me to be brief in explaining why, so I might just leave that for its own video, since I do think it's an interesting topic. But to summarize the basics of it, the timer sucks, the star system is nothing but discouraging, and the Honkai Impact Abyss is the only time I've had actual fun doing the Abyss in any of these games. So I'd like for it to be closer to that, but maybe not 1-to-1. Like I said, a bit too complicated for me to get into right now, I'm just putting it out there. Co-op in this game is okay, but I definitely feel like there's a lot of room for it to be much more than it is right now. I just generally hope they build on it rather than leaving it as is forever, and my one and only suggestion is to make crossplay between servers a thing. Being locked out of playing with new friends because they play in a different server is the worst feeling on earth. So if it's possible at all to enable the creation of cross-server instances or something that allows it to make it possible, I hope they do. I have a personal hate boner for server splits, but that's a long story. In terms of exploration, I only have 2 direct requests. One, make the loot finder mark every collectible that's within its range. The fact it only shows chests and it won't even show them if they are hidden, is the dumbest and most frustrating thing about the exploration in this game. I have enough hours in Tower of Fantasy to tell you that yes, you can absolutely have a crowded minimap and it's not an issue. But the fact that it will only show if you use the loot finder means you are opting in to crowding your minimap. But it's not that the collectible density in this game is that high, to be honest. 2, please just give me a grappling hook. Like, a proper one. Every time I use the grappling hook in this game, I am reminded of the absolute joy of using the grappling hook in Tower of Fantasy. Don't get me wrong, moving around in this game is great, but it doesn't even come close to the level of Tower of Fantasy. My body begins to physically itch as my fingers crave the sweet, sweet nectar of the jetpack double jump, grappling hook, and air dashes combo. Oh, this is entirely a selfish thing. My body craves movement and longs for the grappling hook. Please, Kuro, I will even pull a limited character if that's what it takes to be free. Small update. It's been a couple more days, and I have never been more miserable trying to complete any of these maps. There are a lot of reasons that I've noticed why this is just so much less fun to complete, but I don't want to make this video much longer than it already is. So, long story short, completing the map from 0 to like 90-95%, fine. Fine at worst, very fun at best. For the most part, it's better than Genshin, still not as good as Tower of Fantasy, but I wouldn't expect it to be. However, when you get to that last stretch, it is genuinely more miserable than any of those games. And it's always miserable. It's always a pain to get the last couple of chests, but this game is especially bad. And my big recommendation is still just make this thing work properly and show you everything that is in that radius, every butterfly, every hidden chest, every quest. And if you don't want to do it right away, then fine. Make it so whenever you hit like the 80% threshold for the discovery, you get an upgraded version for that portion of the map, and that way you can have your natural exploration unaffected up to like 80, maybe 90%, that's still fine. But like that last 10 to 5% is just horrible to get. And again, this is like the one area of these games that I have any sort of, I'm not gonna be so bold as to say expertise, but I definitely have a lot of experience on it. This is so much worse than any other game, it's not even close. And so, I'm not even sure I want to finish this. I'm probably going to because I'm stubborn, but also, one thing that they definitely have to fix, 100% doesn't actually mean 100%. What do I mean by that? I had 100% on Central Plains already since like a couple of days ago, and just yesterday I went to like this area approximately, and there was a golden chest there that I thought was for Desert Highlands. I got that chest, and when I got it, because I wasn't sure which one it belonged to, I actually checked my map and it belonged to Central Plains. I had 100% discovery and 100% supply chest, and it still counted for Central Plains. The game told me I was done, and there was a whole golden chest, the highest rarity one, the like, not like the shitty gold case ones, the ones that shine gold. One of those, and it just was not accounted for in this 100%. This 100% means nothing. This 100% means nothing. The game lies to you about your completion. So if you have everything in the game, if it tells you you have everything, check again, because it is lying to you and it is the absolute worst. This has to get fixed, because otherwise, literally, what the hell am I doing? And lastly, this isn't even so much about WoWa as it is about the general state of writing in media. Please just stop trying to cram so much into so little. It feels like every writer out there read the quote, "If I had more time, I would write a shorter letter," and decided that they needed to write the letter short to begin with. Everybody wants to have their big moment, the epic cinematic experience that leaves the audience in awe. But nobody, I mean nobody, wants to work for it. This is most apparent in the first chapters because we know literally nobody. Every game tries to cram too many character introductions into too little screen time and leave no room to get to actually know the characters we're meant to care about. It's why Genshin Chapter 1 sucked. It's why Honkai Star Rail Chapter 1 sucked. And it's why this game's 1.0 story sucked. Just slow down. Let us get to know the characters properly, and then you can have your big moment be actually big, rather than artificially big just because it looks cool. A cool moment is nice and all, but it does not magically make your writing good as a whole. Not that it matters, since the average player will look at a pretty light show and forget about everything else. Ugh. Sorry, as an aspiring writer I have a personal stake on that one. I think that's enough for now. This video will likely come off as the ramblings of a madman, because it is, but with this game consuming my brain the way it has been, I figure I should get these thoughts out of my head, that way I can hopefully regain the ability to concentrate, because God knows I need it. Hopefully the video will be out before the 1.1 livestream, that way the things I say age poorly rather than being outdated from the start. But if not, then, I don't know, I'm not gonna re-record it, that's for sure. I don't really have much else to add, and I've talked for long enough already, so let's get straight to the formalities. If you like the video, somehow, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out on the next one. I usually have more structure than this, but who knows, maybe I should let my artistic nature come out more often, or maybe I should shut the fuck up. We'll see. If you didn't like the video, even though you made it this far, make sure to comment down below every reason why I'm wrong. I try to read every comment, and I welcome criticism in hopes of improving and doing better next time. And without anything more to add, I'll see you guys after the 1.1 dev stream for this game. I sure hope it's better than the last one. Until then, take it away.